Hello, everybody. I don't know if you can hear us. Hi, Meg. Hi, Zach. Hi, Sam. And yeah, I think the settings have you guys muted. So if you'd like to say hello, we're here in Palm Beach at the home of Eric.
Oh, great crowd.
And so you got, hey, there's my Uncle Joe there. There's my parents, your brother.
Look at that.
Chad
Wow.
Blackburn, I see you. Last time I saw Chad, we were on top of an active volcano. I almost died. So yeah, I see Eric and Lisa are getting on. Let me get some more people here. This is such an interesting dynamic with in-person and Zoom. I'm still not sure if I should have done this, but we're gonna.
Hey, we're happy to be, virtual flies on the wall here.
We're gonna just wait. It's just 8 o'clock now, so we'll wait for another minute or two to get people on. I see Stephanie, my colleague, former colleague now at NRI, Debbie Cox-Roush. A few people know her, right? So hello to you guys. Hey, Debbie. All right. Well, thank you guys for zooming in. We really appreciate it. And again, I just want to thank everybody else here for being here. I gotta call out our longest traveler here, Steve Bierfeld. Thank you so much. Came from New York to the free state of Florida. So welcome. But not far behind him, Giovanni came from Charlotte down here. So thank you, Giovanni. And actually, some people came from Miami. And Matt's actually right behind you. Apparently there was crazy traffic coming up from Miami today. So appreciate you guys coming here. So I'm gonna turn this now around.
So that way they can see me and you can see me. So hopefully that's all good. Thank you guys for zooming in. Thank you guys for being here. What I really wanted to do is kind of tell the story of building this company, but also kind of my journey in doing that and why we're doing it and what the company's going to be all about. So what I first want to start with is a quote. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. Those are the words from a great book called The Alchemist by Paul Coelho. And I will return to these words a few times throughout the presentation and the story of the community that I've created called Fearless Journeys. And basically, really everyone has a story. Every single person in this room has a story. And I really enjoy meeting people and connecting with people because in a sense, every time you connect with someone, it's like opening a new book and you have a new story, and new people and new things to learn. And so that's really what's great about, I think, connecting with people and meeting people and even bringing people together. When you bring people together, you then have a library, right? So, however, even all the good stories out there have challenges, right? One of the great things that I've been able to do over the years is I have had the opportunity to meet so many great people through a lot of the jobs I've had and things I've been involved with. And but one of the things that this is actually kind of what led me to starting a podcast a few years, well, now 6 years ago, was because I was in a couple of the roles I was in the last 3 organizations I worked for. I just meet so many people across so many different fields, so many backgrounds. And, when I would sit down and meet people, I would walk away and say, wow, I really wish more people could hear that person's story. I felt like I was in a very privileged position to do so. And then the other thing is I meet a lot of people at their point of success, right? I meet a lot of people, especially in my field of development. But you start peeling back the layers and you learn that they have a whole huge long story. And a lot of that story had a lot of failures and challenges, personal, professional, all of that. One day, I actually, I kept walking away from a lot of meetings thinking, I wish more people could hear this person's story. And actually one person's right here, Davide Proietti. And Davide, I met him and he was in law school at FIU. I was there. I was actually when I was working for the James Madison Institute, and our mutual friend, Jesse Panuccio, was speaking that day and he put us in touch. And I come back to Miami a month or two later. We grab dinner. He's from Italy originally. He takes me to dinner in an Italian restaurant. We have some great wine. We have like 2 or 3 hour conversation. And I remember the next morning thinking, God, I wish I had just recorded that conversation. It was so awesome. And then I'm in my car and I turn on a podcast and I go, wait, maybe I should just have a podcast. Then like people can hear more of these sorts of stories. And so I actually called my friend Isaac Morehouse that day. And Isaac has founded a company called Praxis. He used to do something I did in development before that. He now has another company called Crash at this point. And I said, Isaac, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, and I told him the whole gist. And he said, yeah, Francisco, I think that's great. I think you should do it. And so I did. And it took me about 4 or 5 months to actually get it going. By the time I called Isaac back, I said, hey, it's now, this was like in December of 2014. I called him about March or April, said, Isaac, I still haven't started my podcast. But we talked about having you on. Why don't you just be my first guest? Oh, that's great, Francisco. By the way, I started one right after you mentioned that idea. I have like 10 episodes. I was like, of course you do. So anyway, I've had this podcast, and what's great is the beginning, it was really a lot of people I already knew and met, and through my relationships, I had people on. And then, I started meeting other people that people were connecting me to. Oh, you should have this person on your podcast. You should have this person on your podcast. And I got to sit down with some really incredible people that I never thought I'd be able to actually have a conversation with. And now I'm sitting with them. And I said, I don't even care if nobody's listening to this podcast. I get to sit down and have these awesome conversations. I'm just recording them at this point. So that's all been going great. And, I had some ideas in my head, in the last, year or two of maybe connecting some more people through the podcast. And then, of course, what happens in March of 2020, the whole world comes to a pause. And so that gives us a little, you guys know me. I always go, I'm on a plane going somewhere. I'm involved with so many different things. So I was probably the most frustrated in the world about COVID, right? We got all these plans for 2020, right? Everybody has a story about this. But then, I had some time where I'm not, hey, you know what? You get so much more time back when you're not getting on a plane and checking into a hotel and doing that whole bit, right? So, okay, fine. You can take a few deep breaths, get to do something else. So I don't know if he's on here on the call, but I was emailing with one of the supporters of NRI named Neil Freeman, and we were emailing just about work stuff. And I got an email back from Neil, and Neil said, Francisco, you need to be taking this time in this worldwide pause to develop yourself into an entrepreneur. I've seen what you do. I see all these things. I love what you do for NRI, but I think you could be doing something else. And not that I want to take you away from NRI, but I think, you really, and by the way, I would be happy to help you, right? I was really floored because if anybody knows Neil, he's got an amazing professional business background. He ran the campaign for William F. Buckley in his 20s in New York City. He's written for National Review for many years. So I've actually knew Neil prior to NRI, but really got to know him better during my time there. So that really floored me. And we had a call the next week. I said, sure, Neil, please, let's talk. I have some ideas fomenting in my head. So we did. He gave me some great suggestions on things I could be thinking about. And by the way, literally at this point, it's like maybe April, and we're not really thinking, I don't know how long this is going to last, this COVID thing. But sure, let's think about some of the writing I do, some of the podcast stuff I do, some of the connections and community I can bring together. And then I call my friend Carter Fowler, who is on this call for sure. And Carter has he had actually built some websites for me a few years back when he was kind of just getting started on that. But now he runs a whole brand strategies and builds really nice websites. You saw the website. If you saw it already, he built that website. But we're now in April. And hey, Carter, I know you do these things. Let's talk, whatever. So I actually hired Carter to run me through some brand strategy sessions, doing some Zoom calls in the evenings and things like that. And then 6 weeks later, actually went to Atlanta. But before I get to that, about the week I maybe just had started talking to Carter, I actually go have coffee with Kiana over here. And Kiana, we're both kind of talking about COVID and worldwide pause and thinking about what we're each going to be doing in the future and all these things. And she says, oh, you should check out this Ikigai thing. And I said, you know what Ikigai is? It's this Japanese concept that stands for your reason for being. Ikigai, your reason for being. And anyway, it's a book and everything, but there was so I go back to Carter and I mentioned, oh, have you heard of this Ikigai thing? He goes, actually, I really would like to run you through the Ikigai process for our branding. Ikigai, I-K-I-G-A-I, really look it up. And I'll bring Carter on in a little bit here, maybe to explain this, but what you do is it starts off with your 4 quadrants: what you love, what you're good at, what you can make money at, and what you think the world needs, right? So we did this whole thing for about an hour or 2 brainstorming session, the original one, just to figure out what the heck does Francisco stand for, what does he like to do, and how can he make money, and how can we bring all these quadrants together? So that's what began the process. But I say all this because I go back to this quote from I'm talking, I get this email from Neil. I'm talking with people like Kiana and Carter, and I'm remembering this quote: when you want something, all the universe conspires to help you to achieve it. The universe was starting to conspire. And so then I did all that. I go to Atlanta after 6 weeks of doing the Zooms with Carter. I bring in my friends, Evan Ernst and Kevin Scott. They had actually both been on my podcast. Evan lives in Cocoa Beach and Kevin actually lives in Atlanta. So Evan came in on the Zoom when I was in Atlanta, and Kevin came and joined us in the room with Carter for the first sort of half day of a 2-day session in Atlanta in June, just to kind of see where we could go. Well, by the end of the 2-day session, I couldn't believe how fast we did this, because Carter had this amazing strategy for 6 weeks that I wasn't seeing the end, but he was knowing that we were going to get to the end like that. And I couldn't believe it. In June, the name Fearless Journeys was born. Chart Your Course, the motto, was born. A couple of months later, we hired someone to do the logo. So I say all that because we got there in June. Neil was so supportive. He said, I might even invest in something you're doing, Francisco, so come back and see me. And I actually went and saw him, and we sat down. I had a pitch deck for him in August. And he loved everything I did, and I was floored, right? And it was more about helping entrepreneurs, but it was, I also had this travel component. I wasn't really sure that Neil was going to buy the travel component. He was like, no, the travel component has to stay in there. That's the adventurous side of you. You need to have that. I love that. So I said, great. So I had this great meeting, showed him everything he liked. It said he might invest in something. Then now the next couple of weeks, I'm having thoughts of, okay, how much, should I give him equity, and what other investors should be, so having all these questions, things that wasn't really used to thinking about, things that people, and then I start thinking about, Carter and I talked about building a platform. And after talking to a lot of people, we decided there's no need to build a brand new platform. It's going to be a waste of resources up front. So we're going to use Slack as the community platform, which is a very, very inexpensive way to go to start off. And then, you want to, as an entrepreneur, you want to test some things. You want to test, see what works, what people respond to before you go out and really invest a lot of money into it. So I thought just a few weeks later, in September of 2020 now, I'm in Atlanta. I had been coming through for a conference. I stop, I see my friend Matt Thomas. Flashback to 2018. I had actually reached out to Matt, I didn't know him. I saw some things he was doing online with this great charity called Brawl for a Cause. Literally, people get in a ring, Bob Rubin might, fight Dan Gropper, and they both have a charity that they get behind, and they brawl it out. And I ended up going to one of the events in 2019, but in 2018 I was there in Atlanta for a wedding. Reached out to Matt a week before. Hey, I've seen this thing. I think it's great. I have this podcast. I cover people in the philanthropic space. So we had a great conversation, ended up becoming good friends. At the end of the interview, he says, hey, you know what? Just getting to know me for an hour or two, he said, you should read this book called The Alchemist. I think you would really get a lot out of it, but what you do, I think you do. So I was so glad that Matt recommended The Alchemist. But I say that was in 2018, June of 2018 when I interviewed him. In September 2020 now, I'm moving forward. I had texted him a few updates like I was with other people. Hey, this is some things I'm thinking about. What do you think? But I actually met Matt in his neighborhood like 2 hours before I had a flight back to Orlando. We walked around. I told him all my thoughts. He loved a lot of the stuff I was doing. But what was interesting is Matt, the guy who's, oh, by the way, he's also a world chess boxing champion, right? So he actually boxes himself, plays chess, all this stuff. I say that because I actually started telling people about this name, Fearless Journeys, and a lot of people liked this name. In fact, I have not had anybody except Matt not like this name. And I was really surprised. And he said, hey, Francisco, I really like everything you're doing, but fearless. No one's fearless. Like, yes.
What is chess boxing?
We'll get the chess. You literally play around the chess. You play around the chess, and then you do a round of boxing. Then you go, and whoever knocks each other out first in one way. Yeah. So he's actually the first American to win the international chess boxing championship. But you should have listened to the podcast, Bob. It is a thing. But Matt says to me, hey, and he gives me some Mike Tyson quote about how everybody says they have no fear until they're like punched in the face, right? So he said, you know, even you, I can tell you've got a lot of questions right now, things you're asking me. You're a little anxious about this. You know, you've got a little fear. So I said, okay, well, and he said, I like Agents of Innovation. Why don't you stick with Agents of Innovation? I said, that's the podcast. This is the broader company. So anyway, I didn't really have an answer for Matt, and I get on my plane and I'm actually, you know, flying home, and I'm thinking about it the entire flight. Why didn't Matt Thomas like Fearless? Like the guy goes into boxing rings, like he sees all these people. He didn't like Fearless. Maybe this is a problem. Maybe this isn't going to work. So I started having some things, and then I answered Matt about a day later, and I texted him. I said, hey, you know what? I looked up the dictionary definition of fearless just to like think about it. And of course it says without fear, but it also says bold and courageous. And that's what Carter and I and Kevin and Evan, when we were in the branding session, came up with. A brand that emboldens people, inspires people. It's an enthusiastic brand. And so I want to walk you through this because I think that was interesting. So I text this back to Matt, I said, hey, you know what? The definition of fearless I like is bold and courageous. And you know what? You're right, Matt. And I'm glad the reason I pause and say this, because I think this is important with this name. Everybody has fear. Every single one of us has fear about a lot of different things. And, but the point of this is to push past the fear. You know, I thought about the people on D-Day storming the beaches of Normandy. I bet every single one of them had fear, every single one of them, but they didn't stop. They kept going. And that's what we want to do with this community for people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. We want to get them to push past the fear, even the fear I had to push past. And, but I will say, in that September, with a lot of the questions I had about investors and the name and all these things, I was also in the process of, you know, starting to write a book, which is part of what I'm doing as well. And I said, you know what? If I start this whole thing, like I'm going to have to leave my job. I like my job. I like the paycheck that my job has. And you know what? I think that this is, you know what? I'm just going to put this on hold and I'm going to write the book. And I actually emailed Neil maybe in September or something, or early October, and said, hey, I just want to give you an update. You know, thanks for believing in me, but I'm just going to focus on my book, and we'll, you know, maybe we'll get to this business thing later if it works. So anyway, I say all that. Go forward about another 5 or 6 weeks as you're going through these things. I actually go up to North Carolina for a week. And by the way, this is why I also think travel is important. It gets you out of your everyday mindset. I went up there, you know, back in August, I had interviewed Madison Cawthorn for my podcast. Thanks to my friend Lance Barnett for connecting us with that. Made a great connection with Madison, but also we had the podcast in a cigar lounge. And I met the owner, who had an incredible story, Sam Sohail. And I actually got to talk and hang out, have cigars with Sam after the podcast with Madison. And I said, this is another Davide opportunity. Like, I should have just hit the record button on this 3-hour conversation with Sam. So I said, Sam, like, I don't have time this week, but I'm going to come back here and interview you. Well, it wasn't that long. I didn't realize I was going to come back in November. The last couple of days I helped on Madison's campaign, and me and some friends, including Giovanni, rented a house for the week. I love the North Carolina mountains. I knew it was going to be chaos after the election, and said, no, let's go to the mountains. Anyway, we did. And then, you know, I got a chance to interview Sam. And Sam came from Morocco at the age of 20, about 15 years prior. He's now about 35, with $300 in his pocket. That's it. He didn't come from a poor family. His dad was a banker. His mom was a nurse, but he was 20. And he said he wants to go to America and try to make it. They said, well, here's $300. Good luck, kid. So he goes to North Carolina. He works. He doesn't know English. He knows a couple other languages, but not English. He works in retail. He works in, you know, convenience stores, gas stations. He told me for 2 or 3 years, he worked 12-hour days, 7 days a week, 1 day off a year, Thanksgiving. He, for 4 or 5 months, slept under a bridge. He was homeless. He meets his wife around this time. They get married. She starts helping him with the business. They open a smoke shop. All sorts of, then he likes having some cigars there. Now he owns 2 cigar lounges, one in Asheville in the Biltmore Village, really nice, and one in Hendersonville, which is where I interviewed him. But I say that because this is an incredible story. It's now, I think I interviewed him on Friday night. Giovanni was sitting there listening to this right across from me. And Saturday, I go home. Sunday, I wake up in bed, and I don't know why. My head was a little discombobulated that day. And I said, yeah, what do I really want to do here, right? And I don't really know why I was thinking it that day, but in retrospect, I think I know. But and I literally looked up and I said, God, please give me some direction today. And I look back at that and I think, why did I say today? That seems a little demanding of God. I just was like, I don't know why I say today, but the only reason I remember I say today was because I get up, I have breakfast, a couple hours go by, I finally go over to my little home office, check my email. There's an email from Neil Freeman in this email box. He has no idea. I haven't talked to him in like 6 weeks. And the email's one sentence. It said, hey, Francisco, I've been thinking about you this weekend. And I can hear his voice, by the way. And he says, I've been thinking that a dream is a terrible thing to waste. I literally hit my hand on the desk and I said, that's it. I have to start this. That's a sign, And then I sat there and I said, okay, Francisco, what is your big deal? Why are you not starting this? And literally, I had the plan within 30 minutes. I literally said, well, the reason is I'm not sure of, I said I wanted to kind of not take investors up front. I wanted to kind of bootstrap this. If I do that, I'm not going to have a paycheck. How would I afford life? How would I afford my life expenses to go off on my own and do something? So I start thinking outside the box. Good for entrepreneurs to think outside the box. And I say, well, I want to, what if I could go somewhere where my life expenses were less? I mean, just a crazy outside the box thinking, right? And I go back, I flash back, I see my friend Kyle, who I just signed on here. And in May of 2019, I visited Kyle. He was living in Guatemala for 9 months. He and I had actually met on a trip to Israel in 2018, and which is really cool because, again, another flashpoint here. You meet and get to discover and learn from other people through group trips as well. So I got to become really good friends with Kyle. So much so that, hey, he's in Central America. He tells me, oh yeah, I'd love to come down to Guatemala sometime. So I visit him. He's there for 4 days, make a bunch of connections down there. Right, Bob? It's not hard to make connections in Guatemala. Bob just visited. I only smoked one with Kyle. So anyway, cigars, people, cigars. So anyway, but anyway, but I actually called Kyle. I text Kyle. We actually have a call a couple days later to talk about what was your experience like in Guatemala? Because I remember it being really cheap in Guatemala, and it was fine. I loved it. It was a great place. I loved the people. I made some connections with people at the University of Francisco Marroquín. And I remember Pablo at the university. I'm not sure if he's on here, but actually telling us then, hey, you and Kyle, you have some interesting backgrounds. If you guys are ever interested in teaching here, we'd be open to that. We're very experimental. It's a great free market university. They do a lot of great stuff in Guatemala City. So I literally text Pablo within 20 minutes of having this thought, and he says, oh, I say, hey Pablo, how's Guatemala, how's COVID, how's UFM? I'm just thinking maybe it's so locked down there, I shouldn't go, so whatever. So anyway, he's like, oh, things are fine. Yeah. And I tell him my crazy idea. He says, let's have a call on Wednesday. So we did a Zoom. Well, on Wednesday, literally 3 days after I hadn't talked to Pablo in at least 6 months, and I really hadn't seen him in a year and a half. But he already had a plan. On Wednesday, he said, hey, I already talked to the president of the university, Gabriel. We would love to have you teach here. We can't guarantee a class right now, but we definitely will give you a workspace. We have great Wi-Fi on campus. He's telling me all these things. I got off that call and I was like, when you want something, all the universe it conspires in helping you to achieve it. I mean, I was literally the universe is conspiring. So, that was kind of the point where I said, I've got to do this, right? And so I put together a plan. Of course, about January, I gave notice to my work that I would be, by the way, I go visit my parents on Thanksgiving and I'm like, they're going to think I'm freaking nuts. Like, I'm literally going to move to Guatemala and like what I'm like, I was so like scared to actually tell them this. So I think I might have waited till like the day after Thanksgiving. Like, I don't want to ruin the weekend, you know, like they were like, they heard my whole plan. They just sat there. They're like, that sounds like a good idea. It sounds like, I was like, what? Like, and I was thinking, well, you know, it's the end of 2020. This is probably not the craziest thing they've seen or heard. So probably a great place. But I literally moved all my stuff into storage in Orlando. The last month I was working for NRI, I was able to stay with them in Boynton Beach, and then moved there. And you know, I started teaching March 2nd I moved to Guatemala. March 9th I started teaching, had a fantastic time. Bob has come and visit me, Bob Rubin, Chad, and I think Scott might be on here, and Chris Adams. We just hiked a crazy volcano there, but you know, so here we are in June, back in Palm Beach, and today the fearlessjourneys.org website just went live. Thank you, Carter, for all your hard work on that. And by the way, Carter yesterday decided to send me like our first hour-long Zoom call that he recorded, and you know, I read like 20 minutes of it, and then I was like, this is crazy. Like, some of the stuff is actually like really materialized very well, and some of it was like, what were we thinking in that conversation? We also have a merch shop on Spotify, or I'm sorry, on Shopify, and I've worked with Giovanni and his team at Stephen Gold to create some T-shirts and tumblers and things like that. So we're gonna create some more things in the future. And like I said, we've got a Slack channel up and running, so anybody that joins as members is automatically entered in there. 43 of my previous podcast guests have committed to be featured innovators of the Fearless Journeys community. And some of them are actually here. Obviously, Davide here, Dan Lesniak, Bob Rubin, Steve Bierfeld, I mentioned over here. Obviously, our host, Eric Wind. And by the way, like, Eric and Christine, thank you for hosting us. I've seen some of our other featured innovators on here. I see Amy Gearhartz and Sam Staley I saw here, and I think Zach Slayback's on, and Peter Lipsit. I don't. Oh, there's multiple pages here, so I might be missing a few people. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for doing that. I think it's really incredible. So basically, the setup for this is every month we're going to have live group coaching sessions. So you may or may not have heard them on my podcast or in other places, but every month we're going to rotate some of these featured innovators. So people who subscribe to the community will get an opportunity to be on a live Zoom call led by these people in a group coaching session. And then also we're going to have a book of the month club. And every month we're going to have a book, and we're going to have, you know, you're going to get a little email every week with a little update about what we're reading that week. But at the end of every month, we're going to, you know, have a live Zoom conversation led by that featured innovator. And I'm happy to announce that Matt Thomas, the chess boxing world champion, is going to lead the first book. Which, what do you think that book's going to be? The Alchemist, because I think that book means a lot to me, and I think it's so emblematic of what this community is all about. Like, literally, I would have never thought this reading this book 3 years ago, that like a community is almost like built around this concept of what's in this book. The book is about finding your personal legend and really, like you said, seeing all the signs in the universe that are pointing to what you need to do. And I think everybody has to find that. Everybody's on a journey. This is why we have the Fearless Journey as well. And so we want to help people along their journey. In addition, you know, like I said, there'll be some newsletters. There'll be also every month, everybody's that's part of the community is going to get a curated travel itinerary to a different place somewhere, maybe in the country or in the world, that will be curated with places to visit, things to see, you know, restaurants to go to, like mostly a lot based on my background and some of the people, you know, as well in the community that have a good traveling background that can kind of send people to places. But a couple times a year, we're going to have some group trips, and the group trips aren't going to just be like two exciting places where you get to like experience, you know, the culture and the landmarks and all that stuff, but we're also going to connect with entrepreneurs in those places. And so that way you can kind of see and learn from the people that are doing it right there in those places. And in addition, you know, to that, it's going to be a community. That's the whole idea, is that everybody's on a journey, but no one takes their journey alone. And so we're all kind of in it together. And so when people join the community, they'll have role models and guides to take them on their journey and help them along the way, cheer them on. Now, one of the things we did here, and I hope this works for you Zoom people, I created about a 3.5 minute video that I'm going to play. And this is also something that's going to help explain to other people what the Fearless Journeys community is all about. So, no one is without fear. We are all afraid of something. I recently climbed to the summit of Fuego, an active volcano in Guatemala. Once at the top, we encountered lightning, hail, the sounds of thunder, heavy winds, rain, and cold temperatures. In those conditions, it's hard for some level of fear not to creep in. We also encountered these natural elements while experiencing fatigue from hiking up mountains all day. There were plenty of thoughts of just giving up. But when we are facing danger and experiencing fear, what else is there to do than to just keep moving forward? There is no alternative. This journey reminds me of the path many take in becoming an entrepreneur. So many of us have an idea to do something entrepreneurial, but there appears to be a lot of risk involved. It is a daunting venture. Many experience fear, anxiety, insecurity, or are simply unsure about the process of how to launch their own venture. Fear of the obstacles sometimes only creates more obstacles. That's why I have created the Fearless Journeys community. We want to inspire you to be bold and courageous and keep moving forward fearlessly. When I took that journey to the top of the Acatenango and Fuego volcanoes in Guatemala, I did not take that journey alone. I went with friends, and we went with guides, and we made connections with others along the way, others on their own journey. No one should take a journey alone, and neither should you. By joining the Fearless Journeys community, you will find mentors, role models to learn from, other aspiring and ascending entrepreneurs you can directly interact with, people who will cheer you on, people who will give you honest feedback, people who will push you to keep on going. And along that journey, you can also find others to collaborate with, to grow with. We will have book clubs, group coaching sessions with featured innovators, weekly short inspirational newsletters with actionable insights. There will be a travel component with do-it-yourself travel itineraries and group trips. Travel exposes us to new people, new places, new ideas, and helps us expand our horizons and get out of our comfort zones. You don't have to travel to the top of an active volcano, but you will be given plenty of opportunities to take part in fun travel experiences with others. Travel is hands-on and interactive and helps develop the mindset to be a successful entrepreneur. You will have the opportunity to travel with other entrepreneurial members of the Fearless Journeys community. We will also have in-person meetups in select cities across the country. Successful people not only find inspiration from others who trekked similar pathways, but they also grow through mentorship and accountability. Just like those guides that my friends and I needed to take us to the top of an active volcano, we will provide you with a network of peers and mentors to guide you on your fearless journey. As the founder and leader of the Fearless Journeys community, I have a passion for books, travel, and the natural ability to not only help people connect the dots in their own lives, but also connect with innovators and entrepreneurs all over the country. You will find all this in the Fearless Journeys community. Whether you are a first-time entrepreneur, someone who wants to level up, collaborate with others, or simply find community and motivation by being around others with an entrepreneurial mindset, the Fearless Journeys community will help you find a way to chart your course and enrich your life. If you're ready to take that next step, be sure to visit us at fearlessjourneys.org. Sign up for our free newsletter and consider becoming a member of our community today. So now you guys can see me, I think. So anyway, first of all, let me say I see Chad and Chris and maybe Scott was on here. They were my friends that went to the active volcano with me. That was crazy. So, but what's funny is we literally were up there and I thought the hardest thing was going to be like hiking 8 hours all day. And like the elevation, you're at 13,000 feet, like being from like Florida, like you can tell it's below sea level here. You know, I was huffing and puffing more than ever after all my junior tennis years, you know? And so I just, I thought that was gonna be the most grueling thing, but we get up there and there's a thunderstorm that hits, like I said, like lightning and stuff. And it was nuts. And so I literally was thinking to myself, I think this might be it. like 80 something days in Guatemala, like too long, you know? I was like, like 16 of us, I'm like, someone's going to get hit by lightning. Like we're up here, like there's like, how can we not, you know? And some metal sticks and everything. So anyway, but we made it. But actually at one point, about a few minutes later, I swear to God, I was thinking about the Fearless Journeys brand because I said to myself, yeah, if I die up here, this is gonna be really bad for the Fearless Journeys brand. I might have said that to Chris at some point. And so anyway, but then I was telling Giovanni this a few days later about my thoughts, and he said, but it just made it stronger, right? And I agree. And then I came up with that little script right there. So anyway, but it was a lot of fun. And but the other thing I want to mention is, I hope in some ways, you know, in my story of forming a company, I've been very blessed. So many great friends in this room, friends all around the country, and also people I've had on my podcast that, you know, I've gotten to know. But I've had this great network that I can literally call. I mean, I've talked to Dan, Bob, our friend Sonny, who's maybe on the line here, multiple times over the summer. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who have, you know, Zach Slayback. He's heard from me a few times. Like, but I've been able to have those connections and pick up the phone, text somebody, because I've had this network. A lot of people aren't as fortunate to have such a large network like that. So what I want to do is bring my network to you and bring my network to so many other people. You know, that video that I created, literally like 3 or 4 weeks ago at the most, I literally emailed Matt Farrar and Joe Clements, and they had been on my podcast 2 or 3 years ago, but Matt was my roommate like 7 or 8 years ago. And they live in Tallahassee, and they have this amazing studio up there, and they do all this great digital work. And I had them on when they were like, they weren't just getting started, but they were really early compared to where they are now. They've got like 20 something people on their team now. They're doing incredible. So I said, hey, can I hire you guys for like a video? So anyway, they did that so fast, and they helped me so fast. And I knew who to call too, right? And so anyway, I think that's what I'm hoping, that I can kind of have a network that's kind of, and that other people, you know, can tap into, and also they can be pushed forward on there. So, you know, for those who might be in the room that want to join the Fearless Journeys community, if you do today, you get to walk away with one of our free t-shirts. I was just telling, by the way, I'm teaching a class at a prison right now. I'm teaching economics, and I was telling that, you know, nothing's free. But anyway, so anyway, but no, seriously. And then also we're selling them too. So if you just want to buy a t-shirt, that's great. And anybody that joins online or anywhere, if you know people that are interested in joining this community, they also get that same deal through the end of June. So, but I hope there's like, you can look on the website. If you go to fearlessjourneys.org, you go down to the Innovate page. There's 4 levels starting at $99 a year to $9.99 a year. And you can see all the different benefits you get at each of those levels. And so I really encourage you, and I'd be happy to talk to you where we think you can kind of fit in there as well. I did want to just, you know, I've been talking so long, and I know this is running a little long, but Carter is on the line here, and I know he probably, you know, wants to say something. So I'll unmute you there, Carter, if you'd like.
I mostly just want to say congratulations, Francisco. It's been such a long journey to here. You know, I am glad that I just published this in-depth case study that pretty much outlined the entire process that we went through over the last 13 months. And I was kind of split on whether or not to include the part of the story where, for lack of better words, you got some cold feet for a little bit and weren't sure if you were going to follow through with it for a couple of months. And then you had the point of revelation. I decided against it because I felt like that was your story to tell and not mine. But you know, we really have just come such a long way. And I kind of wanted to, I imagine most of you, or many of you at least, probably have not really been familiar with this concept of Ikigai. And this was something really special because I have a brand strategy framework that I work through with most of my clients. And we follow a very set process, but this was something kind of special that I added on at the beginning for Francisco because there was just so much potential, and it was hard to narrow it down at first. And so, you know, he explained those 4 quadrants. It's what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. So we came up with a lot of things in those 4 quadrants, and I will just list some of them that came out of 2-3 hours. We probably spent about 8 hours together working through this Ikigai framework before we even got to anything about developing a business, building a brand, any kind of strategy on that. And so Francisco's original quadrants, I'm just going to read you guys some of these things. What he loves. We have a couple things here: creating shared experiences, writing, teaching, connecting people, history, travel, events and gathering. Then for the quadrant, what the world needs, we have optimism. And this is all from Francisco. I kind of drew it out of him, but this is all his words here. So optimism, the world needs understanding historical context, cultivating healthy habits, self-belief, fighting the feeling of powerlessness, more community. Then what are Francisco's strengths? I'm sure.
2020.
Yes, exactly. In the throes of early pandemic. Then on what Francisco's good at: bringing people together, creating value through introductions, purposeful writing. He's a strategic conversationalist. He's great at preparation and planning, socially perceptive. And then what he could be paid to do. And this was really us just kind of throwing things at the wall at this point. I tried to really make sure that Francisco, we were like, let's not count anything out here. If it's worth anything, we'll put it up here. So we have mentor or counselor, managing teams, public speaking, content creator, communications and messaging, a teacher, a coach, fundraising, and then the last one was real estate. And so honestly, of all of those, how many of those do you think are ended up being wrapped up into Fearless Journeys here? Pretty much every single thing. The only one that I can think of is maybe real estate, but I guess that just depends on when Fearless Journeys locks down their first home base. So, it's really wild to look back at that. We were creating this in May of 2020. And really we're not sure where the process would lead us, but just had faith in the process. And between those, we came up with what Francisco's passion was, what his mission was, what his profession was. I'll just sum these up in some quick phrases because I think it's really, it was really beautiful. Francisco's mission: stronger purpose through broader perspectives. Francisco's expertise: facilitating strategic growth. Francisco's passion: seeking to enrich and connect. And Francisco's opportunity: to help people find direction in their lives. A month later, we were going through these in-depth strategy sessions, locked in this room together with Kevin Scott, and just trying to figure out exactly how we were going to bring all of this together in a way that would be fulfilling and meaningful to Francisco on a mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial way that would also provide a lot of legitimate value to everybody. And it's been a really long process. It's been such a rewarding process. This has been one of, if not my favorite project I've ever worked on. I won't go too much longer on it because if you want to read the whole in-depth case study that I wrote about it, because you've already heard the story from Francisco's perspective, but if you want to check it out from my perspective and learn a little bit more about how we made some of these decisions and the details in the process, you can check out the case study. It's really easy to find. You just go to Carter Fowler Creative, that's my name, creative.com/fearless. And you can read the whole case study there. And of course, if there are any questions that anyone has about the process for myself or Francisco, I'm sure he'd be willing to answer it. And I would be as well right now. But honestly, I just want to take a deep breath for a second and say, thank you, Francisco. I feel very blessed to know you. Congratulations to everything. And everyone, if you do have a glass, I would like to ask you to raise it to Francisco because he deserves it. And I really believe that we're all very lucky.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Carter, so much because he really pushed me, as you could tell, and I've known Carter a little while now, but it was really great, and I highly recommend him. It was an amazing process, and like he said, we really didn't know. I didn't really know if this was going to become a company or a business or whatever. It was more of a, hey, I got some extra time. I need to figure out all these extra things that I do on the side that I don't make money for. I should maybe figure that out. If you're doing something and you're not even getting paid for it, it means you probably like it. And so what if you could get paid for something like that? And it might not be exactly what you want to do, what you're going to get paid for at the end of the day, but it's something within that sphere. So anyway, Carter kind of helped, Carter pushed that process all the way through. So I really appreciate that. And like I said, there's just a lot of elements that came together. so many people that were part of this that probably didn't even name in this whole process. But, you know, when I started that podcast 6 years ago, and I had this like idea to do it, like, what the heck? Now I've had, let's see, we're gonna put our 94th episode in next week. And all those different stories to just sit there and listen and converse with people. Like when you listen to this many entrepreneurs, you like every time you just like, wow, like I wish I could be doing something like that. Right. And so like you just keep getting that sucked into your brain. So anyway, I really, really appreciate it, Carter. I don't know if any, I don't want to keep, does anybody have any comments, questions?
How do you get involved?
So yeah, how to get involved, fearlessjourneys.org. And there is, thank you, Giovanni, I paid him for that. Fearlessjourneys.org. Actually really explore, the cool thing about, you know, the motto is chart your course. And what's cool, Carter came up with this concept, when you get to the homepage, you have 4 places to go. And we almost actually were going to try to put some kind of compass in there. And Chad, your wife, Hillary, actually said to me, I like that it's like a compass. And if there's not even a compass there. So Carter nailed it when I heard that comment from her, and she had no idea what we were going for. So there's 4 directions that you could but learn, innovate, and travel. And you could go and some people may just be interested in the travel. Some may be interested in the innovation. Some may be interested in the book club. Maybe somebody likes all of those things. I love all of those things. So I'm trying to really inspire people to learn through doing. And learn with others. Like that's how you learn, and that's how you get going, and that's how you get pushed. And so that's kind of, and so when you go on there at the very bottom of most of those pages, especially the Innovate page, you could see all the benefits. You could see the membership information and how you can get involved, Giovanni. So thank you. But also anybody can get the free newsletter that will go out once a month. There'll be a community newsletter. You'll all get one in the next couple of days, just telling you all the different things the community's up to, with also little inspiring quotes and links to podcasts and all that stuff. But every week, inspired by one of my favorite writers of 2020 that I read in 2020, James Clear, Atomic Habits. Great book. I now actually have used the book in my class at UFM, teaching entrepreneurship. And I read it right when COVID was starting, just happened to be the next book I was reading. Perfect timing. And actually, I think on that Zoom call, Carter, that you sent me yesterday, I was talking about that book. So it was already having an impact on me. But James Clear has this really great newsletter every week. It's called like the 3-2-1. You literally can read this newsletter in like 3 minutes. It's very inspirational, couple quotes, couple ideas. And that's what I want to like kind of take that same concept and have like a quick 3-minute newsletter with entrepreneurial beginning stories one week, actionable insights the next week, innovative perspective the next week, and a fearless journey story the next week that you can read in 3 minutes. And so that's also free to subscribe to. So really the idea is casting a wide net and getting a lot of people inspired. And then hopefully, you know, some will want to join and actually be paid subscribers and really interact with people in the community. So that's a wrap, I think. I think we've taken a long time here. I mean, unless someone online has a pressing question or something. Oh, I see things coming up in the chat. So, but thank you all for your really nice comments, and really, really appreciate it.
So I'll be back here if you guys want to buy some t-shirts, sign up for membership. I'll take care of you. And we can take any form of payment from cash to Venmo to Zelle. Bitcoin, yeah. And
I'll take Bitcoin.
And then make sure to drop that link for your virtual listeners to on Shopify.
Yeah, I'll drop a link here for you guys in the chat as well. For I'll tell you what, you all get an email tomorrow anyway, so I'll do that as well. Probably be easier, but yeah, thank you guys so much. And also, yeah, in terms of merchandise, I mean, Giovanni's been really great. A month ago, I'm like, you know, when you're doing like 50 million things and you're trying to start a business and you're doing all these things and you're in Guatemala, like you think of things last minute, like, oh, I need t-shirts, you know, or I need, you know, let me call someone I know. And like really, he moved very fast with several members of his team. They created other designs there. I didn't have the capital to invest in additional t-shirts right away. We'll have more things down the line. We got a lot of great ideas. But we, anyway, so thank you guys so much for being here. For you guys that want to hang out, I really, go ahead and hang out as long as Eric lets you. But really, Eric and I have known each other since about 2005-ish. I was working at ISI. He was at Georgetown. Episode 75, I had him on. He's a vintage watch dealer. I would have never thought that in a million years that Eric would be doing that, and he does like really well in that. I was wearing in here one day. a watch owned by John Mayer, like, 10 years ago or something. So he's got like his eye on all these cool things. So and as you can see, ISI really helped develop him, I think, as somebody who really pays attention to like the things of the classics. Look at this great art, great vintage watches, and a great wife and a great family. So thank you, Christine and Eric, for hosting us here. And thank you to everybody online. Talk to you guys soon.
Congratulations, Francisco. This is awesome. Great job, Carter.
See you later, Francisco.
I see my old neighbor, Mike Arnold. Good to see you, Mike. Thank you. Hey, Harut. Thanks, Harut.